Alright, so something to note about me is that I absolutely love harem animes. In fact, you might say that they're a guilty pleasure of mine. Now, I don't exactly remember what anime it was that kickstarted my love for the genre, but if I had to guess, I'd say it unintentionally started with one called Konosuba, which I'll explain in a bit. Konosuba actually is absolutely in my top three favorite animes of all time, if not top five at least. My favorite of all time is and will always be Dragon Ball, if anyone is wondering. Now, even though I wouldn't necessarily put it under the harem category, at least not right now, it did actually cause me to search up animes that actually more fell into that video game aesthetic. Like with Konosuba, it had MMO and RPG elements and the like. It was an anime that played out like a game rather than being based off of one, if that makes any sense. Anyway, that caused me to look up similar animes, and while I found other isekais and the like, it was these two specific ones called The World God Only Knows and Date Alive where I was properly introduced to the genre. Seriously though, if you haven't seen The World God Only Knows, go watch it. I personally like Date Alive, and while I am nostalgic of it, since it was like I think it was like my fourth or fifth anime I had ever watched, I feel like it can be hit or miss with some people. So to make a long story short, for reasons I will get into later, I got hooked. So why do I like harem anime so much? Well, to be honest, I can't really put my finger on it. But I've always been an avid believer of the saying, the more the merrier. I mean, when most seasons come out, you always hear best girl of that particular show, and usually it's pretty much the main heroine. However, in harem animes, you always have more than one, and it's always pretty fun debating which one is actually best. The waifus tend to have a wide variety of looks and personalities, and while there are a lot of cliches you start to notice if you watch enough of them, you usually don't notice with the good ones. And of course, if I'm being completely honest, you can't go wrong with the fan service. Sure, I know it's not for everyone, but who cares? It's since I like to think of it as the cherry on top of having so many waifus in one show. Now, that's just some of the things I like about the genre, but of course, it's not without some faults. I tell you, if there's one fucking trope I absolutely cannot stand for the life of me, it's something that usually revolves around the main protagonist. Now, earlier, I mentioned that the heroines in a harem show tend to have a wide range of personalities and traits and all that. And while that can also be true for the protagonist as well, I'm pretty sure like 90% of it will, at least the animes I've seen, consist of the dense fucking brick that has to be asexual because there is no damn way these assholes can have this many titties being waved in front of them and still not notice at least one of the girls likes him. Same thing with the girls too. They like tend to have a lot of the exact same personalities from show to show. Like I guarantee that there will always be a tsundere love interest in like 99.9% of these animes. Nothing against tsunderes unless they start to get abusive, in which in case it starts to get really annoying, at least for me. Now, I guess it's not really their fault as much as I feel it is, since I tended to notice that in older shows where it wasn't as much of a cliche because it was still relatively new at the time. But it can still be present in a lot of animes nowadays, so maybe it really has become the most basic formula you can do. Speaking of the dense trope, another reason I call BS is because for some reason the girls usually fall for the protagonist because he's supposedly like a very sweet guy, even though he's actually a fucking loser. And that's enough for them to see him as marriage material, and that's obviously not how it fucking works in real life. Because if it was, all the weebs would be living it up. Obviously, I'm joking. But seriously, we all know why the protagonist has to be dense sometimes, because if it was in any way realistic, the second one of the girls gave a strong hint of liking him, he would immediately date them, and the story would be over. Honestly, the only reason for dragging out a romance that I can definitely buy is if both parties are too damn shy to say what they really feel, and that's actually pretty relatable. Fun fact, I was actually indifferent to the dense trope because it was never obnoxious until I saw Infinite Stratos, and I would legitimately get pissed off anytime something lewd happened on screen because all it really meant was it didn't fucking matter in the end because the dipshit protagonist, I don't even remember his name, would never reciprocate it afterwards because each episode was just the same will they won't they bullshit. And when it looked like he would finally make a move on someone, the other bitches would interrupt and ruin everything. Alright. I know that sounds a bit hypocritical, saying having multiple love interests gets in the way, but honestly, it really depends on the show. To me, a good harem anime gives all the girls plot, quote unquote, depth, and reasons for why they would be the best choice for the protagonist to spend the rest of their lives with. And that's just with the animes where you know only one girl will win in the end. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the harem ending where all the girls are happy because I can be a bit of a bitch when it comes to that, and not seeing them end up happy is always bittersweet, depending on who won. And it's all fiction in the end, so who gives a fuck? I will admit there have been several animes and mangas where I absolutely did not agree with the pick in the end, but that's a whole other can of worms. For the most part, the rest of the story usually was too good to be ruined by the MC's objectively poor decision making. But what's done is done. Again, just let Infinite Stratos be an example of how not to do it, because the whole point of the genre is to have all these girls be potential lovers for the protagonist, and you know it's damn trash. It's actual damn trash when you just want something, anything, to fucking progress the plot, and for the dumbass protagonist to just pick somebody. Well, I actually forgot how much that show pissed me off. I will admit I don't mind some dumpster fire harem animes here and there, but even I have my limits because I would rather it be entertainingly bad rather than a fucking snooze fest. Anyway, one last thing before I go. I just wanted to give a top 5 of my personal favorite anime in the genre. Keep in mind this is my opinion, and if you really care about it, let me know down below. Or not, in which case, starting from the bottom is Date A Live, Testament of Sister New Devil. Oh shit, that's a really spicy one right there. Trinity 7, The World God Only Knows. That shit is a fucking masterpiece. I don't give a shit what anybody says. That is objectively a masterpiece. And High School DD, that is also a masterpiece. Yeah, that one will always be number 1 for me. And no, it's not just for the fan service. Like I said before, that's just the cherry on top. I swear, okay, it's not just the breasticles. Fuck you. Believe it or not, it's actually got a good fucking plot. I mean, an actual plot. Like, it has a really good fucking story. That's why it's my number 1 in the genre. But, too bad. I'm still waiting for fucking season 5.